I didn't notice it right away. That's what still bothers me the most, how normal everything felt at first. The morning began like any other. Gray sky, stale air, the kind of quiet that settles into your bones when the city hasn't fully woken up yet. I remember standing in my kitchen half awake, staring at the coffee machine as it gurgled and hissed like it was struggling to breathe. I remember checking my phone. No missed calls, no messages, no warnings. If I had known then what was waiting for me, I would have stayed home. I slung my bag over my shoulder and locked the apartment door behind me. The familiar click of the lock echoed down the hallway. Too loud, I thought, but that was probably just my nerves. I'd been having trouble sleeping lately. Vivid dreams, the kind that feel more like memories than imagination. On the bus ride downtown, everything felt slightly off. Not wrong enough to panic, just wrong enough to notice. The bus was quieter than usual. No music leaking from headphones, no loud conversations. Even the engine sounded muted, like it was being smothered. I sat near the back, my bag resting at my feet, swaying gently with each turn. That was when I felt it. A shift. Not a sound. Not a jolt. A change in weight. My bag seemed to settle in on itself, like something inside had adjusted, as if it had been waiting for me to stop moving before it made itself known. I frowned and nudged it with my shoe. It didn't slide. That alone was strange. My bag always slid. The bottom was worn smooth, the fabric thin from years of use. But this time, it stayed firmly in place. I reached down and picked it up. It felt heavier. Not dramatically so, just enough to make my wrist tense. I stood there, gripping the strap, my heartbeat slowly quickening as I ran through everything I'd packed that morning. Wallet, phone, notebook, lunch, charger. Nothing that should feel like this. Carefully, I set the bag on my lap and opened the zipper just enough to slide my hand inside. The air inside was cold. Not morning chill cold. Not metal object cold. It was the kind of cold you feel when you step into a basement that hasn't been opened in years. The kind that feels thick, heavy, wrong. My fingers brushed against something solid. I flinched and pulled my hand back like I'd been burned. My chest tightened. I laughed quietly under my breath, trying to shake the feeling off. Get a grip, I told myself. You're tired, that's all. But I didn't put my hand back in. Instead, I zipped the bag shut and stared at it for the rest of the ride, convinced, absolutely convinced, that if I looked away, it would move again. The bus screeched to a stop and I nearly jumped out of my seat. I got off 2 stops early. I don't know why. Something inside me insisted I needed space, air, distance from other people. I found myself standing in a narrow alley between 2 buildings, the smell of damp concrete and old garbage hanging in the air. My hands were shaking now. No denying it. Slowly, I unzipped the bag all the way. At the bottom was something that hadn't been there that morning. A bundle of black cloth. The fabric looked old, frayed at the edges, thick with age, as if it had absorbed years of smoke and dust. A thin string was tied around it, knotted carefully, too carefully, like whoever tied it had taken their time. And the worst part? It was warm. I didn't touch it at first. I just stared. Because warmth meant life. And I knew that nothing living should have been inside my bag. For a moment, I wondered if this was some kind of prank. Maybe someone had slipped it in on the bus. But the knot, the weight, the way it sat perfectly at the bottom like it belonged there. No, this hadn't been placed there randomly. My throat went dry. I leaned closer. The cloth twitched. Just slightly. That was when I realized something else. I didn't remember opening my bag at all that morning. And yet, something had. I stayed in that alley longer than I should have. Time felt strange there. Thick, almost syrupy. The city noises faded until all I could hear was my own breathing and the faint rustle of fabric every time the wind slipped between the buildings. I told myself to leave. I told myself to zip the bag shut, walk away, pretend I never saw any of it. But my hands didn't listen. They hovered over the opening of the bag, fingers trembling, as if something below was pulling them closer, not physically, not yet, but with a quiet, patient insistence. The bundle didn't move again. That somehow made it worse. Slowly, carefully, I reached in and lifted it out. It was heavier than it looked, much heavier. The kind of weight that made my arms ache immediately, like I was holding something solid all the way through. No hollowness, no give. The warmth seeped through the cloth and into my palms, uncomfortable and intimate, like skin pressed against skin for too long. I set it down on an overturned crate. For a moment, I just stared at it. The black fabric was stained in places, darker patches soaked deep into the weave. I didn't want to think about what caused them. The string binding it was thin but strong, tied in a knot that looked deliberate, almost ceremonial. I swallowed. My mouth felt dry, like the air itself was draining me. "Okay," I whispered to no one. "Okay." The word didn't sound convincing. I reached for the knot. The moment my fingers touched the string, a sharp pulse shot up my arm. Not pain exactly, but pressure. Like when your foot falls asleep and suddenly wakes up all at once. I gasped and nearly pulled back. But the feeling passed. And that was when I noticed something else. The alley smelled different now. Not garbage, not rain-soaked concrete. Something older. Like dust sealed inside a box that had never been meant to be opened. I worked the knot loose, my fingers clumsy and numb. The string fell away with a soft hiss, almost like a sigh. The cloth loosened. For a long second, nothing happened. Then, blink. I didn't see it at first. I felt it. That unmistakable sensation of being watched. My skin prickled, the back of my neck burned. Slowly, dread crawling up my spine, I pulled the cloth aside. Inside was an object about the size of my palm. It was carved from something pale, too smooth to be stone, too matte to be metal. Bone was the closest comparison, but even that felt wrong. Bone didn't feel like this. The surface was etched with symbols. They weren't random. They spiraled inward, curving and overlapping in ways that made my eyes ache if I stared too long. Every line was precise, sharp, deliberate, cut with purpose. At the center was a shallow depression, and inside it, an eye. A real eye. Glossy, wet, bloodshot around the edges. It stared straight up at me. For half a second, my brain refused to accept what I was seeing. It tried to reframe it. A glass ornament, a prosthetic, some kind of grotesque art piece. Then the eye blinked. I screamed and dropped it. The object hit the ground with a dull, heavy thud that echoed too loudly in the narrow alley. The eye rolled wildly, scanning the space, its pupil contracting and expanding as it adjusted to the light. I stumbled backward, heart slamming against my ribs, my legs threatening to give out. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." The symbols on the object began to move. Not quickly. Not dramatically. They shifted slowly, like insects crawling beneath a thin layer of skin, rearranging themselves, sliding into new patterns that made my head throb just to look at. The eye stopped moving. It fixed on me. And in that moment, I understood something with terrifying clarity. This thing wasn't just looking at me. It was recognizing me. I wrapped the cloth around it again with shaking hands, not caring that the fabric felt damp now. I didn't tie it properly. I just shoved the bundle back into my bag and zipped it closed, my fingers slipping on the zipper twice before it finally caught. I could still feel it. Even through the fabric, even through the bag, a presence, aware, waiting. I didn't go back to my apartment. I didn't call anyone. There was only one place I could think of. One place that was supposed to deal with things people couldn't explain. I turned toward the street, my bag heavy at my side, every step echoing with a single pounding thought. Someone else has to see this. And whatever it was inside my bag, I had the horrible feeling it wanted that too. The police station looked normal. That was the most unsettling part. Bright fluorescent lights, glass doors smudged with fingerprints, A bulletin board cluttered with outdated flyers and missing pet notices. It was the kind of place that was supposed to make you feel safe simply by existing. I stood outside for nearly 5 minutes before going in. My bag felt heavier with every second. The strap dug into my shoulder, and no matter how I adjusted it, I couldn't get comfortable. It was like the weight inside wasn't just physical, it was insistent, reminding me that it was there, that I hadn't imagined any of it. The glass doors slid open with a soft mechanical hum. The sound made me flinch. Inside, the station was busy but subdued. Phones rang in short bursts. Radios crackled with overlapping voices. Officers moved from desk to desk, their footsteps echoing sharply against the tiled floor. No one noticed me at first. That shouldn't have bothered me, but it did. I felt exposed, like I was standing there holding something that didn't belong in the world and everyone else was just carrying on. I approached the front desk. The officer behind it looked exhausted. His uniform was wrinkled, his eyes ringed with dark circles. He didn't look up when I spoke. "Excuse me," I said. "Nothing." I cleared my throat. "I need to report something." He sighed, still typing. "Lost item, stolen property, or complaint?" "None of those," I said quietly. That finally made him look up. "I found something in my bag," I continued. "I didn't put it there, and I think it's dangerous." He stared at me for a long moment, clearly weighing how seriously to take me. "Sir," he said, "people forget things in their bags all the time." "I know what was in my bag," I replied. "This wasn't." His jaw tightened slightly. "Put the bag on the counter." I hesitated. "I'd rather explain first," I said. "Please, just be careful." That earned me a look, half annoyed, half curious. He reached under the desk and pulled out a pair of latex gloves, snapping them on with a sharp pop. "All right," he said. "Let's see it." I lifted the bag onto the counter. The moment it touched the surface, I felt it shift. The officer noticed too. His hand froze inches from the zipper. "You feel that?" he muttered. I nodded. He unzipped the bag slowly. The black cloth was right on top now. It hadn't been like that before. The officer frowned. "What kind of prank is this?" "It's not a prank," I said. "Please, don't touch it with your bare hands." "I'm wearing gloves," he replied, already lifting the bundle. The warmth surprised him. I saw it in the way his shoulders stiffened. "What the hell?" He untied the cloth. I opened my mouth to stop him. Too late. The eye opened. For one heartbeat, the station went completely silent. Every radio, every phone, every voice. The fluorescent lights flickered once. Then, someone screamed. It came from behind me, a sharp, panicked sound that cut through the room like glass shattering. Chairs scraped backward, papers scattered. An officer dropped his coffee, the cup exploding across the floor. "What is that?" someone shouted. The officer at the desk stumbled back, ripping the gloves off his hands like they were burning him. "Close it!" he yelled. "Cover it! Now!" But the eye was already moving. It rolled slowly, deliberately, taking in the room. Its pupil dilated, then narrowed, focusing on each person in turn. When it looked at me, my vision blurred. A pressure filled my head like someone pressing their thumbs behind my eyes. The symbols on the object glowed faintly, shifting faster now. Radios crackled back to life, but not with dispatch. Low whispers spilled from the speakers in overlapping voices, speaking languages I didn't recognize, words that scraped against my thoughts and made my stomach churn. An older officer near the back of the station went pale. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." I grabbed his arm without thinking. "What is it?" I demanded. "What did I bring in here?" He looked at me like I'd just handed him a loaded gun. "That," he said, his voice barely audible, "should not be unwrapped." The eye blinked. And somewhere in the station, another officer began to cry. For a moment, no one moved. The eye sat there on the counter, half unwrapped, glistening under the flickering fluorescent lights. It didn't thrash or pulse or do anything overtly violent. It simply looked. And somehow, that was worse. "Clear the lobby," someone shouted. The spell broke instantly. Officers sprang into motion. Civilians were ushered toward the exit, some protesting, some too shocked to speak. One woman kept asking if this was a drill. No one answered her. A man stumbled over a chair in his hurry to get away, leaving it overturned on the floor. The radios continued whispering. Low. Urgent. Wrong. An officer slammed the glass doors shut and locked them manually. Another pulled the blinds down over the windows, sealing the station off from the street. "What are you doing?" I asked, panic clawing up my throat. "Let them out!" "They're already out," someone snapped. "We're containing it." Containing it. The word hit me like a blow. The officer from the front desk grabbed the cloth with shaking hands and threw it over the object again, not bothering to tie it. The fabric twitched once, then stilled. The whispers from the radios softened but didn't stop. An older officer, the one I'd grabbed earlier, stepped forward. "Everyone back," he ordered. "Now." His voice carried authority. Not just rank, but experience, the kind earned by surviving things no one talks about. They backed away. So did I. He turned to me. "Did it speak to you?" he asked. "No," I said quickly. "It just looked." His jaw tightened. "That's bad," he muttered. Before I could ask what that meant, the station lights went out. Total darkness. Someone cursed. Another officer yelled for flashlights. A second later, emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the room in dim red glow. The bag on the counter shifted. Slowly, deliberately. "It's moving," someone whispered. "No," the older officer said. "It's listening." The radios erupted in static. Then one voice came through clearly. "Not dispatch. Not human. Witness acquired." The sound made my teeth ache. Every officer froze. "Who's on the line?" someone demanded, hand on their weapon. No answer. The older officer turned to the desk officer. "Call it in." The desk officer hesitated. "To who?" The older officer stared at the bag. "You don't want to know," he said. "Just use the code." The desk officer swallowed hard and reached for the phone. As he spoke, his voice dropped, words clipped and careful. "This is Station 12, he said. "We have a black artifact, unsealed. Civilian exposure confirmed." Silence. Then his face drained of color. "Yes," he said. I understand." He hung up and looked at the rest of us. "They're coming," he said. "Until then, nobody leaves." My heart sank. The whispers grew louder. The cloth over the object darkened, soaking through with something warm. The eye pressed up against the fabric from beneath, its shape unmistakable. I took a step back and bumped into a desk. "Why is it reacting like this?" I asked, my voice barely steady. The older officer didn't look at me. "Because it recognizes you," he said. "What does that mean?" He finally met my eyes. "It means you weren't the first person to touch it." The lights flickered. The radios screamed. And from somewhere inside my bag, I felt a familiar, terrible warmth. The room felt smaller after that. Not physically, but like the walls were leaning in, listening, absorbing every word and breath. No one spoke for several long seconds. The radios had gone silent again, but the silence itself felt strained, as if it might snap at any moment. The older officer broke it. "Everyone who isn't essential," he said, "step back, now." A few officers hesitated. "You too," he added sharply. They obeyed. I didn't move. "You," he said, looking directly at me, "are staying." My stomach dropped. "Why?" "Because it's already too late for you," he replied, not unkindly. Before I could argue, a heavy door at the far end of the station opened. 2 officers I hadn't noticed before stepped inside. They weren't in standard uniforms. No name tags, no insignia I recognized. Their movements were calm, too calm for what was happening. Behind them came a woman in a long gray coat, her hair pulled back tightly, her expression unreadable. She looked at the bag once, then at me. "That's the carrier," she said. The word hit harder than suspect ever could. "I didn't steal anything," I said. "I brought it here." She nodded. "They always do." The older officer gestured toward the counter. "It was unsealed. Partial exposure." "How long?" the woman asked. "Less than a minute," he said, but it focused. Her eyes narrowed. "On him," she said. "Of course it did." She approached slowly, stopping several feet from the bag. One of the uniformed officers tried to step closer. "Don't," she said without looking at him. He stopped instantly. She turned to me. "Did it show you anything?" "No," I said, then hesitated. "Not exactly." She studied my face as if watching for something beneath my skin. "You felt watched before today," she said. "Didn't you?" I didn't answer. She took that as confirmation. "These objects," she began, "are not weapons. They're not cursed artifacts. And they're not alive. Not in the way people understand life." She gestured toward the bag. "They're records." The cloth shifted again. "They observe events of interest," she continued. "Collapse, violence, extinction-level patterns. When something reaches a critical point, a witness is placed nearby." "Placed by who?" I asked. Her mouth tightened. "By whatever survives long enough to want proof." The room seemed colder. "Why me?" I whispered. She met my gaze. "Because you were already on its timeline." My vision blurred at the edges. "What does it do?" I asked. "Now that it's here?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she nodded to one of the officers who slid a metal case onto the table and opened it just enough for me to see what was inside. More black cloth. More symbols. More eyes. Some closed. Some not. "We contain them when we can," she said quietly. "We bury them. We erase them. And sometimes, we fail." The eye beneath the cloth pressed upward again. "And sometimes," she added, "they wake up." The radios crackled to life. Not whispers this time. Words. Clear. Close. "Sequence confirmed." The woman stiffened. "Everyone out," she said sharply. "Now." "What about him?" an officer asked, gesturing to me. She hesitated. Just for a moment. Then the lights went out completely, and something inside my bag blinked. Darkness swallowed the room. Not the simple absence of light, but a thick, suffocating black that felt like it had weight, like it pressed against my eyes and filled my lungs. The emergency lights didn't come back on. The radios didn't crackle. Even the ambient hum of the building vanished. It was as if the police station had been removed from the world. I tried to speak. No sound came out. I felt the bag slip from my shoulder. Then the floor disappeared. I was falling. There was no wind, no sensation of movement, just the certainty that I was going somewhere I wasn't meant to be. Then I was standing. Light returned slowly, bleeding into existence like an old photograph developing in a chemical bath. Shapes formed, walls, furniture, my apartment, exactly as it had been that morning. Every detail was perfect. The chipped mug on the counter, the uneven stack of mail by the door, the faint water stain on the ceiling I'd always meant to fix. The air even smelled the same, stale coffee and dust. "Hello?" I called. My voice worked again, but it sounded distant, like it was echoing inside my skull instead of the room. I stepped forward. My foot passed through the coffee table. The realization hit me slowly. I wasn't there. I was watching. The front door opened. I stepped inside. No, another me did. Same clothes, same bag, Same tired posture. I watched myself cross the room, set the bag down, and open it. My stomach twisted. Inside the bag was the black cloth. But this time, I didn't look surprised. I smiled. "No," I whispered. "That's not right." The other me lifted the object gently, almost reverently. The cloth fell away, and the eye opened wide, far wider than it ever had before. It wasn't just an eye now. It was a window. The room dissolved behind it. I was pulled forward, through the pupil, into something vast and impossible. I saw the city from above, not as it was, but as it would be. Buildings cracked open like brittle shells, streets buckled and split, sirens wailed endlessly, overlapping into a single constant scream. People ran, not from fire, from shadows. Shapes moved through the smoke, tall, angular silhouettes that bent the light around them. Wherever they passed, the air itself seemed to rot. The eye blinked. The scene shifted. I saw the police station again. Empty. Doors hanging open, desks overturned, dark stains smeared across the floor. On the far wall, written in something thick and black, was a symbol I recognized. The same one carved into the object. The meaning hit me all at once, not as words, but as understanding. Witness present, event confirmed. My head throbbed. "Stop," I begged. "Please stop showing me this." The eye didn't respond. It never did. The scene changed again. This time, I saw something worse. I saw myself sitting alone in a small, windowless room. The object rested on a table in front of me, unwrapped. I was talking, explaining, convincing. Across from me sat people in suits, nodding slowly, their eyes reflecting the same unnatural light as the witness. They weren't afraid. They were interested. The realization made me nauseous. "I wouldn't do that," I whispered. But even as I said it, I felt the lie forming. The witness wasn't showing me possibilities. It was showing me certainty. I felt memories that weren't mine settle into my mind, countless carriers before me, each one chosen because they were close enough to see the end before it arrived. Some resisted, some broke, some helped. The worst part? Every single one of them believed they were doing the right thing. The vision slowed. The eye filled my entire field of view. And then, it spoke. Not in sound, in thought. "You are not special," it said. "You are simply early." I felt myself being pulled backward, ripped away from the vision like a thread snapped taut. The police station slammed back into existence around me. I collapsed to my knees, gasping, my head screaming with borrowed memories and future grief. The lights flickered weakly overhead. The woman in the gray coat stood a few feet away, watching me carefully. "You saw it," she said. I couldn't answer. My hands were shaking too badly. She crouched in front of me. "What did it show you?" I looked up at her, tears blurring my vision. "The end," I whispered. "And me helping it happen." Her expression didn't change. "That's why it chose you," she said softly. "Because now you'll spend the rest of your life trying to prove it wrong." The bag at my side was warm again. Warmer than ever. And somewhere deep inside my mind, something unseen was still watching, still recording, still waiting. They said it was a gas leak. That's what the reports claimed. A minor electrical failure, faulty wiring, a brief incident of mass hysteria triggered by stress and suggestion. By morning, the police station was back open. Fresh paint covered the stains. New lights replaced the ones that had flickered. Every officer I spoke to remembered the night differently, or not at all. Some didn't remember me. Others insisted I'd never been there. The woman in the gray coat was gone. No records, no name, no acknowledgement that anyone like her existed. And the object? Officially, it never existed either. But I know better. They let me go just before dawn. No charges, no explanation, just a single warning from the older officer as he walked me to the door. You didn't find it, he said quietly. It found you. I tried to go back to my life. I really did. I took time off work. I cleaned my apartment obsessively, throwing away anything that felt even slightly out of place. I checked my bag every morning, every night, sometimes waking up just to make sure it was empty. It always was. Until it wasn't. The dream started first. I would wake up with the sensation of an eye opening somewhere behind my thoughts, watching me from the inside. In the dreams, I wasn't running anymore. I was standing still, holding the object, listening as people begged me to explain what was happening. And I did. I explained everything, with a smile. Then came the smaller things. My reflection lagging half a second behind my movements. My phone recording audio I never made. Strangers on the street staring at me just a little too long, like they recognized something they couldn't quite place. Sometimes I'd catch symbols scratched into places I swore had been clean the day before. Bathroom mirrors, fogged windows, the dust on my bookshelf. Always the same spiral. Always pointing inward. I tried to tell someone. A doctor said it was trauma. Prescribed medication that dulled the fear but made the dreams worse. A therapist asked me to describe the object. I never went back after she started sketching it without realizing what she was doing. I stopped talking about it altogether. That's what it wanted. Because silence is fertile ground. A month ago, I felt the weight again. I was on the bus, same route, same time of day, when my bag shifted at my feet. That familiar, impossible heaviness settled in. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I already knew. Last night, I finally understood something the witness showed me that night. Something I'd been too afraid to accept. It doesn't cause the end. It documents it. But documentation has a way of becoming instruction. And carriers like me? We're footnotes that learned how to speak. That's why I'm telling you this now. Not because I want help. Not because I think it can be stopped. But because once you know what to look for, you start seeing the signs everywhere. Objects that don't belong. Memories that don't line up. The feeling of being observed at moments that should be private. If you ever feel unexpected weight in your bag, if you ever notice something that wasn't there before, do not unwrap it. Do not show it to anyone. And whatever you do not let it see you noticing it. Because once it does, it starts recording. And eventually, it hands the story to someone else.